Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to bring the Kane County Master Plan Visioning Session on April 12th, 2023 to order. I am Corinne Pirog. I am the Kane County Board Chairman. I would like to welcome all of you to this visioning statement. I've been asked to say why we need it. And there are two reasons, twofold. One, I'll be sharing a picture with you just shortly. A picture is worth 1,000 words. But it has been the dream, the aspiration of many members of the county board for many years, as well as staff who have well served the county, as well as our elected officials, to complete the task that was started in 2009, to actually develop a campus that was responsive to our community's needs. Since that time, we have either patchwork things, adapted use, trying to make do, being afraid of restrictions because of perceived financial difficulties. And today I'd like to challenge you all. Today we begin to make a plan, to make a concrete, succinct plan on how this county can move forward for the next 15, 20 years. Now, this is not going to be an easy task. We have to get it done in 6 months' time. So your diligence and your attention to this and your responsiveness to these questions are going to be very important because we need your input. And there will be, as you know, a series of meetings throughout the 6 months and task force and collaboration that's going to have to be done. But we have to make sure that Judicial Center is responsive to the needs of a new court system. It's critically important. We have to make sure that our clerk's office can really satisfy the needs of the future of voting and the future of the reports that they need to create and distribute. We have to make sure that our IT has the capacity to develop that as well, because everything is going to be about Wi-Fi, as we well know. We have to make sure that Office of Emergency Management has the opportunity and the facility to have their vehicles close at hand, not have to travel a distance and not to have their meetings in a separate location, so that they are aligned with the other members of emergency management, such as the Sheriff's Office. And then we have the Government Center. The Government Center, which has one handicap bathroom, a lactating room that is between two offices, and if those offices are closed, a woman can't go in there to feed her child. And to feed her child is in the place where a toilet once was. And it is a chair without a table and no arms. Any woman who has fed her child knows how challenging that is. There's not even a table in there for a father to go in to change their baby. We have carpeting that underneath hides asbestos. And we have one accessible entrance, which I'm about to show you. Could you put up the picture? This happened today. This is our handicap accessible entrance. We have at the Government Center a single handicap accessible entrance, which was, when the building was built, was used for people probably who work there, for the students, and not for the public. And the public access goes up a series of steps into what was once the old chapel and now our county board meeting. So, as you can see here, there was a fight that happened today, this morning, and the door lost. And now the door is closed. So not only is the door very narrow for a person to get in who may have a large walker or a wheelchair and be able to go through there, Right now, it's going to be closed down. It has to be opened, but it is going to be shut down until a new door is able to come in. That's still not going to answer the problem of accessibility. So I'm sharing this picture with you because it's current, and this is what the main entrance of the Kane County Government Center now looks like. Why do we need a new building? This is one of the reasons.
Let's just buy a door.
We're going to be we're going to be buying a door, sir. But tell me what we're going to do with the lactating room. Tell me what we're going to do about the 2 bathrooms that we have, that are only our 2 bathrooms that are accessible, and if one of those breaks down. So there are many reasons to take a look at opportunities that are presented to us, and to see if we can move forward in a fiscally responsible manner to respond to the needs of our communities, and to make sure that Kane County has the kind of buildings that is responsive, once again, to the needs of not only our staff and our elected officials, but also to our community. So with that, I'll turn this the meeting over to White and Company.
Pledge of allegiance or roll call.
No. No, not a committee of the whole. No, I think we're fine.
Well, thanks everyone for coming out today. It reminds me of school a little bit. The first people all sat at the back of the room except for this brave table here who sat up front, so thanks for that. Yeah, I think, many of you we spent time with during the space needs process, interviewing everyone. The real intent now is to take the data that we've collected on the space needs and understanding the physical conditions and all that, and move forward to set a good plan, as Madam Chair said, that really sets the county up well for the future. So, achieve that clear.
She's not being paid. It's your
15 minutes.
I've been told I can't be informal.
Okay.
All right, as advised by our state's attorney, I call the meeting to order. I think we need to take roll call. Who's going to lead that?
Testing.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Christine.
Allen.
Alan,
Bates.
Bates here.
Berman.
Irvin's here.
Doherty. Davis. Ford.
Ford present.
Iqbal.
Iqbal present.
Gums. Juby.
Here.
Kenyon.
Here.
Caius.
Guys present.
Leonard. Lewis.
Who's here?
Linder.
Linder here.
Molina.
Molina present.
Roth.
Roth here.
Sanchez. Silva. Strathman.
Stratton here.
Surgis. Tarver.
Tarver here.
Tepe.
Deppie here.
Williams.
Williams here.
Young. Purog.
Here.
You have quorum?
Okay, we are now have a quorum. And our first introductor, our first point is White and Company. I'll turn the meeting over to them.
Great. So I think everybody had a chance to scan the QR code. I know a number of people were doing that poll on the on entry. Big representation from Geneva, but I saw Elgin and Aurora coming from a little bit of distance, so that's good. If you haven't had a chance to scan that, we're going to be doing a series of live polls here in a couple of minutes, so scan the QR code so you're ready for that. Sure. See, who wants to lead us in the pledge? Roger? Okay, perfect.
Right there.
All right, ready? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you please ask if there's any public comment?
Anybody here with public comment?
Hearing no public comment.
Okay. I guess I should have put the real business agenda in front of this agenda. I'm so sorry about that, but No, so we're going to do a series of polls and exercises tonight, this afternoon. Want everybody to just feel comfortable to share your thoughts. We don't want to be super formal about all this. We're just trying to collect as much feedback as we can throughout the process. So I think the chair did a wonderful job of summarizing why it's important to go through this process. I'll just give you a little bit of my perspective. I've been doing master planning work for a number of neighboring counties over several years. And you know, I've seen counties that have done a really good job of planning, just make great strategic decisions about their facilities. It's tough sometimes. You're confronted with issues that come up out of nowhere, and if you don't have a good plan and you've put together space appropriately to address things that come up, you find yourself in a situation where you're in a very reactive mode and sometimes make decisions that aren't the best for the long-term outcome. So I think that going through a process of analyzing what's the best approach, how to really plan for facilities as far out in advance into the future as we can is really important. Certainly as we project out to the year 2050, things get a little more cloudy in the crystal ball, but it's still important to do the best job we can to analyze what we think the needs are going to be. And I think that to the greatest extent possible, just try to plan for flexibility in the future. I think if many people I know, I recognize a lot of faces that have been on the board here for a long time, that know that things have evolved pretty significantly over the years. I don't think anybody would have predicted the pandemic and changes that happened in the court system and other areas as a result. So really important to just be flexible in terms of future thinking. So again, I'm Jason Dwyer with White & Company. I think a lot of you have seen me either through the space needs interviews or at presentations at admin or other committee of the whole meetings and so forth. But joined by Kevin Havens, Danielle Appello, Rich Van Zyl here, and Megan Zag over there, all from White & Company. And most of us have been involved on the space needs planning work with Kane here so far, and working with other counties on master plans. So I think I gave a pretty good overview of the overall process at committee of the whole recently, but I'll just talk for a minute about kind of where we're at and where we're going. So we've developed space needs projections. That's really best assessments on what the staffing needs might be, what some of the workload indicators might be in the future, how that translates into square footage space needs, looked at things like adjacencies and other things that are important to that overall process. And now what we're looking to do is take that data and put it into a concrete plan for solving the challenges we've identified. And really it's going to be, this is kind of a launching off point to get a lot of input from the leaders of the county. And we're going to have a whole series of working sessions over a 6-month process. The plan is to present updates regularly at the admin committee. We've got scheduled a couple updates at committee of the whole, and happy to provide any additional updates to the board as we go, just to make sure everybody's comfortable that they're getting the information they need and having the input they want to have. So I'm not going to go through all the detail of the space needs, but this is the report we put together. I think maybe back in February or even a little bit earlier, that might have been would have been distributed to all board members. So I'm certainly not going to go through that page by page here this afternoon. But one of the things I want to talk about is just a couple key drivers. So one of the things we've looked at is population growth, and I think those that have been following this, CMAP had some pretty large population growth projections at one point, and then just recently, really October of 22, they scaled that back a little bit. So what you see on the screen here is kind of the current projected population for Kane County out to the year 2050. And I mean, it's a growing county still. I think not as much as maybe CMAP projected 10 years ago, but why that's important is, we look at what the impacts of population growth or changes in population might mean to the different functions and services of the county as one measure, and we know that we need to keep planning for the future for growth in the county. So just a couple key takeaways. In terms of the findings from the space needs report, we had identified that there's a number of locations where there's increased need for staffing, and obviously associated space with that. So Each department's a little different. Some have different drivers in terms of what the workloads are. We looked at things like how technology maybe can make the need for additional staff a little less. But each department was looked at kind of on a case-by-case basis. We also know that there's some significant space deficiencies already in a number of the departments. And I guess what I would maybe highlight there as an example is the judiciary. A lot of the judicial offices, state's attorney, probation, public defender, all have kind of space crunch issues as it stands. There's also, I think we've identified, whereas the judicial center was a purpose-built building for the court system, the government center was not. Some of the other facilities were facilities that the county moved into. They weren't purpose-built, purpose-designed for the operations, and that presents some challenges in terms of efficiencies of space. There's other issues, aging facilities, that was talked about a little bit by the chair at the intro. Some of the challenges with accessibility, public wayfinding. We were having a conversation this morning about, it seems like every time I come to this site, somebody asks me where to find something as I'm walking from my car to the building A. So also some challenges with adjacencies and other things. But the good news is the county has some really good assets, good property assets, good ability to solve these challenges. So really what we're trying to do here is come up with good solutions. So I'm just going to click through a couple of sites. On your table, I think there's a handout on this, but this might be good to refer back to later. The county has a couple primary sites. So certainly the most important, or I guess kind of biggest consolidated site, not maybe most important, but is the judicial center site, where you've got your main criminal courts, sheriff's office, the jail, juvenile justice, and the newer multi-use facility. This property also has property across Route 38 to the north. That's kind of just off the image on this page, but much of the buildings here, really all the buildings here, were purpose-built for their function. There's some additional capabilities at this site. Then there's the 3rd Street Courthouse site. So, while this is an older building, I think it's doing a pretty nice job of supporting the needs of the judiciary. There were some conversations during the space needs stage that maybe there's a way to do some refining of this by taking some of the maybe juried courts out of there and shifting some things around. But a high quality building asset, and one that certainly could serve a purpose for the county going forward. Also on this site, the court annex on there was a building that was identified to be in pretty poor condition, not in great shape. So we tried to analyze the sites and the buildings of all your different locations to kind of evaluate what was good, what might serve a purpose going forward. Then we've got the government center site. So, an example of a site that you guys have done a wonderful job to, use for government operations. But it does have some of its challenges that we talked about at the beginning. Some difficulties with wayfinding. Some of the buildings are older, in need of a lot of maintenance and repair. So just all stuff to think about as we plan for the future. The Randall Road Branch Court site. So right now the primary, probably the largest single user in here is the circuit clerk. And then there's the branch court, some storage for the county clerk, elections equipment, and then the diagnostic center. So this is a building that the county rented for a while and then acquired several years back. And I think serving a nice purpose, but just another property asset that we need to take into consideration going forward. Then there's Fabian. So Fabian was the site of the old adult jail, and a handful of ancillary buildings. Actually, a lot of them are in really poor condition and are on the verge of being demolished at this point, just because they're in such poor shape and not serving a strong need. But the site itself is a really nice location on Fabian. It's got signalized access, and it's something that could be a home for future facilities potentially. So then the last thing I want to touch on is some property assets that are owned in Aurora for the health department and court services. I would say both of these buildings are in not the best condition. Maybe that's being nice about it. They're not serving the need really effectively for the groups that are occupying them right now. They are county-owned assets. there's some additional property there, so I think we'll talk a little bit about different values of having what we're calling kind of a satellite facility like in Aurora. And I'll just make note that there's a couple other building locations too that are leased spaces. So the Regional Office of Education has leased space in Geneva. Community Investment has leased space in Batavia. There's also branch courts in Aurora and Elgin. There's court services lease space in Elgin as well. So I think many know that you've got the nice population center here in the Tri-Cities, but there's also a significant population up in Elgin at the north and Aurora to the south. So far the county has taken advantage of kind of a satellite concept to bring some specific services to the constituents where they reside. And that's something we should talk about. Is that a good strategy going forward? Should we do more of it, less of it? All things to be considered. So with that, I think I'll end kind of that sort of just summary of background. Anybody who hasn't clicked into the QR code to do the phone poll, we're going to do just a couple more quick prompter questions here. And again, we're some of these are just trying to get everything warmed up and moving here, and others we're looking for some pretty specific feedback on what your thoughts are on some specific topics. So has everybody had a chance to answer the first question?
We're at 32 so far.
Okay.
Pretty close. We'll need another minute for this one.
Anybody else need another minute?
Yeah, I'm not going to click it because it looks like
Oh, someone's typing.
Yeah.
No?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, well,
yeah.
hold on one second.
Yeah, there's QR codes on the table. I'll just keep going. You're at the hole.
Everybody good? Okay. I'll tell you, let me know.
Do you want to explain the concept of word?
Sure. Yeah, so I think those that haven't seen kind of this word cloud type of polling, the word that's largest has gotten the most responses, the smallest has the least responses. That's probably fairly obvious, but I figured I would just state it anyway. Looks like we got maybe one more. Good? Okay. Okay, so,
Next one's also just kind of a softball.
yeah, just kind of open-ended, what are the best reasons for living in Kane County from your perspective? Maybe keep it to a couple words so we don't have long sentences, but, or long paragraphs.
And you could put more than one in as well.
Yeah, you can put multiple items. Safe, okay, good. That was a good one. Somebody's got a sense of humor.
Sometimes they just.
Mine just blanked out again.
There you go.
You see that?
Yeah, there you go.
Just a few more seconds and we'll move on to the next one.
Okay, so good, yeah, safe, open space, great, diversity, jobs, a lot of good answers here, great. Let's go on to the next one. So this one's maybe a little more focused on office holders. Certainly, everybody should feel free to answer top issues facing your office today or your work environment. Maybe for the board members, if there's something specific about facility or other items, answer however best suits you. Everybody get a chance to respond? Okay. Oh, one more. Two more.
You asked for it.
I don't want to cut anybody off. Ooh, more. Somebody's got multiple issues.
Good thing that future questions are multiple choice.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to move on to the next one. Great, a lot of good answers there. So another question, a little bit about work environment. Anything specific about the work environment or the buildings that you go to conduct county business that are on your mind, top issues there? I'm seeing issues with space, older, aging facilities, more facility-related issues of accessibility, ADA, security. Yeah. so this one will be a little easier, multiple choice. What's more important to you when evaluating building assets? Preservation of existing assets or functionality of the facility? I know it's tough, probably maybe a little bit of both on some of these, but maybe just kind of what's more important if you can pick one over the other.
Do we all do that at the same time?
Call the IT department.
Did everybody get a chance to respond? Okay, I think we'll move on to the next one. When evaluating costs, what's more important to you, first costs or long-term life cycle costs? Okay. Great, well, that was kind of unanimous almost. So which of the following sustainability and wellness concepts are more important to you in your community? You can choose up to 3 here. Do we end up losing some off the screen? Or?
No, it'll.
Oh, it does.
It shows
Okay,
up better
okay,
on the
good.
phone than it does on the screen.
It's like school board.
So, we have energy efficiency, that would be things related to building design, systems, being very efficient, biophilia, connections to nature, movement, physical activity, wellness-related items, alternative energy sources, different strategies on, whether it's renewable energy, something that offsets use of power from the grid or gas. Healthy building materials, another one on there. Oh, rainwater management, another one. So in terms of rainwater that falls on the roof or the pavement, does it just go right into sewers? Are we doing some more sustainable or environmentally friendly measures, best management practices, that sort of thing?
Windows, how about just a window?
Yeah.
Okay. So pick up to 3, your top 3. If
I think it is put in. You
Okay.
pick 3 and then you hit send.
Yes,
Got it.
he said.
Okay, perfect, good.
That's good.
Does that everyone get a chance to hit send? Looks like it, maybe. Okay. Okay, so what's more important to you when considering facility locations? A concept of centralized and consolidated county facilities and functions where all functions are in one spot, satellite locations dispersed throughout the county, or a hybrid scenario where you might have centralized core functions and what I'll say strategic satellites for specific operational needs. Okay, which of these is more important to you when considering a master plan? Saving money or building for the future? I know you all want to click both of them, right?
The problem with the question is that even with building the future, you could be saving money.
Very true, very true. It's a great point. That goes to the life cycle cost aspect of things too, thinking about it in a very thoughtful long-term strategy. Good point. Okay, what's more important in terms of future facility design? Building security or easy access for staff and the public? Yeah, I keep in mind, this isn't, we're not saying it's gonna be a one or the other with this. We're just trying to get an initial impression. And yeah, this is a tough question because it's different for each building too. Certainly, when you talk about the jail or courts and that, there's a little bit different level of security need.
Each one knows it's correct.
You won't get anybody calling to complain about taxes.
Okay, so this one's a little more complicated, and I think that it's maybe a little early to be asking this question, but I just want to kind of get, again, initial impressions.
No, it's not.
When some have clear thoughts on this. So when we think about the government center, and I kind of did that quick run through of the different locations in that, if you were to think about the future of the county government functions, do you believe it should be located where it resides right now with maybe some renovation to do some enhancements? Should a new facility be built at the Fabian Parkway site that you own? Should a new facility be built at the Judicial Center campus? Or maybe even some sort of a hybrid where we look at a customer-facing location, maybe something like Randall Road where a lot of the public service component and supervisor assessments, places where the public are coming to on a regular basis, in one location, and then what I'll call maybe more back office functions of the county could be in a different location, so it would be split. And don't feel like Randall Road would be the only location, but think about it in the context of some sort of a hybrid, or we put other down there as an option, maybe something that we haven't put on the poll here.
This could also be a question that gets asked again at several points over the next months as we're going through our study.
Right. Again, just first impressions. We're not going to take action on this poll at this point. I mean, we're going to go through a whole process of evaluating things. We're going to establish pretty clear and objective criteria to evaluate different scenarios. I think I mentioned that when I presented the committee of the whole. But we're just curious to get a sense. A lot of people have been here a long time, maybe have some thoughts about what they feel is really important to them. So we're just trying to get an initial sense of things from this question. Okay, so maybe a little more open-ended here. What was the decision primarily based on from the last answer? Was there a specific reason you chose one of the options over another? Looks like we have a couple more weighing in. Everybody get a chance to respond? Nope, one more. Okay, great. Last question. What are the top priorities to be considered when developing the master plan? You could do a short. Okay, I'll give you another half a minute here, and then we're gonna move on. Okay, I think we're gonna move on to another exercise now. And you're gonna switch over to the.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a little more open-ended. So maybe in the context of some of the things we've talked about so far, some of the key issues you identified, we just want to get people to share just thoughts on kind of some of the key challenges and opportunities they see from your own perspective, your constituents' perspective. We're gonna try to type in some notes and details as we get them. So I think we put a couple categories up here to as prompters: population growth. What does that mean? Issues around sustainability. Thoughts around multiple campuses. How are we serving the public? What kind of trends are you seeing? What kind of opportunities are there for better public service? Technology. And then, we can create more categories. We didn't want to be too prescriptive in the process. So I would say, formulate some thoughts and raise your hand. If somebody's got an idea, we'll just start working around the room, see if we can, go ahead.
How about the fundamental revolution in the way people are viewing working in offices in central locations?
Yeah, that's a great comment. So I don't know if that fits well into one of our other categories. Maybe, work mode, I think that's a good one. Thoughts around hybrid work styles or other thoughts on work we can add in there. Other thoughts? Mavis?
Do you think that the CMAP projection is realistic? Where are we going to put 100,000 more people? The birth rate is dropping without wiping out our agricultural industry. Where are we going to put these people? Do we have the water for them? I don't think it's realistic. That's the water need.
Good comment. I'm not a CMAP expert, so I won't be able to answer the question, but we put that down as a good consideration, I think, to think about as we're looking at this. I mean, we've seen that CMAP has modified projections recently, so, but I think that's worth putting on the list here. Others? Yeah, sure.
Access to public transportation.
Okay, great. Challenges and opportunities. If you think there's some specific opportunities, things where technology has been a great benefit to us, Heidi?
How about increased technology services so that the public can access government services not necessarily in person? I think our future generations are going to ask for that.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I think we got a lot of that during the space needs where, we hear that some people are super comfortable just getting on the computer, paying a bill, doing whatever. Others still like to come in and pay in cash. So, I think, but thinking about the trends and how people adapt more and more to technology and what that might mean for planning is important. Other thoughts? Yes.
Yeah, I serve as the chairman of the CMAP Council of Mayors for the whole region.
Great.
So I get invited in with some regularity to analyze various projects and ideas that they've done. I sat in a meeting earlier this year, last year, where it was at the end of the COVID thing, and they had a meeting of all the folks. And they said from that the city of Chicago had figured that over the last 3.5 years, they have lost 400,000 people in the population of the city of Chicago. And that many of these people have dispersed themselves into maybe 12 pockets in the suburban Chicago area, and that in central Kane County and in Kane County in general, this is where a lot of them landed. I'm the mayor of Batavia, and right now we have under construction or issued permits for 549 new living units. Most of them are filled before they're completed, and we have a lot of this activity. So there's a lot of replacement of people fleeing the city and coming out here. And we've talked to a number of them who arrived in our town. Why are you coming? And they say, I'm scared to death to live in Chicago. There's too much crime. There's too much violence, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that's been done is we've made Kane County, I think, pretty attractive. We're the one county, we've got 3 metro lines, Elgin, Geneva, and Aurora, all coming into Kane County. We've got the Bus on the Shoulder program on I-90 in Elgin, and the conversations and the land acquisition is in running water right now to do it on I-88 from out to 47 in Sugar Grove. So there's a lot of transportation opportunities that we have that make us very, but again, I think this, Corinne and I were just talking, probably the 3 big things are the quality of the schools in Kane County, the safety perceptions that we have a very strong police presence, and backing that up, we have a very good state's attorney, and we have a great court system that really deals with things. And so we've got things going on here that are very, very positive, that if you go to the rest of the area, you do not find all this.
Yeah, I think those are great comments. I mean, I saw a lot of notes earlier about the quality of schools, safe space, outdoor space, things that are attractive about Kane County. Yeah, and it is interesting. I think you see how legislative changes, other changes that happen, things like the pandemic can make big changes in terms of regional areas. And so I think that's something to keep in consideration. I think, sometimes something will swing one way and swing back, but those are all good things to keep in mind when we're looking at a long-term plan. Chris?
Open space, Mayor, open space and access to nature. You're very important.
Yeah, great opportunity, great benefit. Yes, Liz?
So I think that we have an opportunity to do what our neighboring counties have done, which is get a centralized location for museum for history. If you look at, DuPage has a history, has a county history thing, and sort of Cook and Lake has it, and we don't have that. And we have a chance now, because we're building something up, we could have a destination where people could come and learn about our
see that as something that is a county direct opportunity or through partnerships?
Well, I think it can go all ways. One of the things I was thinking about was what could we do to repurpose some of the spaces that we may vacate. And I thought, well, if we had some type of a traveling history thing where each of our townships could put something that was important to them, like we have in the courthouse, we have all of the murals at the top, and then each could have whatever's important to their community. They could partner with the various history centers or the arts or whatever and have traveling shows. So when people come in, they have a chance to, maybe there's a 3-month run on what happens in Rutland Township, or maybe there's something about what are the highlights of Elgin, and things that people normally wouldn't see if they're not visiting those particular communities. I just think it's a great opportunity to have, and I could talk for hours about it, so we can talk offline about it.
Yeah, sure.
I give
Great.
it a lot of thought, so.
No, it's great. I think I'd gotten some feedback from another board member after one of the county meetings, just about the pride of place in Kane, and I think that it's important to keep in mind, and if the county can continue to play a strong role in that, support the history and the pride of place that a lot of the residents have in the county, it's great. Other comments? Yes.
I would like to see a boardroom that put more people in it, and also that we wouldn't have to come here to have a meeting like this. We had better. No, I know, Mike, you don't want more people from the public coming, but you know.
And none of them in talking time, too.
So maybe better or more efficient meeting spaces,
Yes,
public
exactly.
gathering, and that great comment. Yeah.
I think you need a category for public support and buy-in.
Yes, that's a great comment. Public support and buy-in. Yeah, ultimately, there's a balancing with this of planning for the future. There was a lot of notes earlier about finances and budget and all that, and how do you pay to maintain facilities, and if you need to build new facilities, how do you get the support you need from the public? What kind of elements of master planning, support services for the constituents can be made better? That's always something that helps. I mean, if people feel that something the county's providing to them is of keen interest or really needed by them, certainly there's going to be a much higher level of support for any ask that might come in that regard. So I like that comment. Any other thoughts on that relative to maybe better ways to provide support or services to the constituents? Judge Hall.
Well, I know that one of the things we talked about, 2 thoughts, is one is, when we were doing ours, we talked about how many different services people that come to the courthouse need. It could be social services, it could be domestic violence counseling, it could be, but right now, we have them having to get those services all over. So when we're talking about public support buy-in, one of the things we talked about is could we build into the new building or the new campus small offices, small spaces where they can get those services, Secretary of State, instead of having to go all over, we're centralized there. The other thing that I want to put out there that she just reminded me of that we just probably read about in DuPage is mental health is one of the biggest issues that's facing Kane County. DuPage just came out with a fantastic plan to have a drop-in and a transition. So instead of getting arrested and having people go through the court system, basically a crisis intervention team that's there. It's something that's worked in other states and other areas, but again, if we're talking about opportunities and public buy-in, that would be something that would reduce costs for the system. So when we're talking about taxpayers and asking them to make an investment, if we can show them how in this building we will be able to reduce costs by providing mental health treatment, working with the police and law enforcement, I think that would be something that would fall under both category tax savings and public support.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, Mike and I were talking about that as we were starting up this session. We're actually working on that project for DuPage. We're fortunate enough to be working on it. It's a really interesting facility that's not real prevalent in Illinois, but it's got some great models around the country. And we're thinking that's going to be a great benefit overall to the system. Takes the burden off of hospitals and law enforcement. So I think about those kind of things too. I mean, maybe there's, not that we're trying to, the county can provide every service that's needed, but when you think about services that maybe can be provided that you're not doing right now, but that have a back-end benefit, and how can you work through certain synergies I'll use another example. DuPage did a model of a combined 911 facility with a private entity and did a partnership with that was a benefit to multiple groups. So I think anytime you can get a couple different units of government together or maybe other nonprofits, different strategies around working together as a team to solve problems so that the burden of cost and operations isn't on one entity alone is always a good thing to think about. Yes?
I think we need a new category of costs.
Okay.
And especially comparing the cost of renovating our existing buildings versus building a new building with functionality comparable, but with which one would really be the most practical and serve our purposes the best.
Great, thanks. Yep.
I think when we start talking about public support, we also have to talk about public opposition. And I think abandoning the current space or selling it off to a developer to put up condos and apartments is to meet with a lot of resistance.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes.
Kind of along those same lines, I think there's an opportunity in looking at some of our current assets for uses that benefit everyone and have potential to bring in additional revenue into the area. Recreational spaces, making, adding to Kane County's already really good destination space.
Great. So we're getting close to the time we had allotted for this. We've got a break planned next. I'm happy to, people please keep going. We'll keep taking notes. My team's going to kill me for this, but keep throwing things at us. If anybody wants to, if you want to take a break, get a little snack out there. We've got some refreshments, some drinks, a little bit of food to eat. So if you want to take a break too, but anybody who wants to talk, keep going. Kevin?
Jason, one comment is we realize it's around the board and you're going to try and get the temperature down. Hopefully when you're back to the break, a little bit.
Stay with us. Yes.
So, a couple things, in the pandemic, a lot of our offices, we realized that, we don't have a good space to operate in for emergency preparedness. Warehouse space to store things when we had an influx of lots of material. We were, forced to find spaces, and thankfully with the help of, the owner of Sam's Club and Batavia and Madam Chair and the mayor of Batavia, we were able to, use some existing space. But I mean, when something major happens, I think our staff and our spaces are at their limits. I mean, there's no place for us to go, no place to hide. And then the other thing is that we use valuable office space to store stuff. And most of it is that way because the buildings were designed, for offices. They're designed for, the spaces for public service. They do not have a very good, component for storage, warehousing, long-term storage. And now, many things people are saying they have to keep, indefinitely. And that's technology as well as, the material items. But, following up on emergency preparedness, whatever the, challenges are that are facing the health department and the health community and our OEM and emergency preparedness, I mean, I think, every time we have an incident, that's like one of the first things where we have to figure out what we can do to respond because we're not in a position to have, the assets.
Okay.
Especially space. Space is at a premium right now.
Great, thanks. Brad?
Yeah, there's a couple of comments that was made about the space and then about the value of what assets that we have. The other thing is a lot of other government bodies have gone through this process, and what they found out is how many rooftops do you really want? The more rooftops that you have, the more, if it doesn't cost you now, it'll start costing down the road. So long-term efficiency is when you can reduce your number of rooftops, and that's reduce the number of units that you have to service it, mechanical, electrical, whatever. So
Same is true, Ron, for the technology.
Exactly.
We have a staff of tech that goes out to 30 buildings.
Yep.
If you send them to Elgin or Aurora, they're gone. I mean, so that you may not see them till the afternoon. So there's a, that distribution of the assets and buildings is time and effort. If you had a more consolidated, or at least a couple campuses that were more dense with building, or you could put in the appropriate infrastructure for it, it'd be easier to support.
Right.
Get more mileage out of it.
And I'm gonna probably ruin your ideas by saying that Jack is really big on having 3 satellites on. He wants the Aurora covered, or Belgium covered, Aurora, and Geneva.
Yeah,
And when you talk about rooftops and then,
No, but we have 7 buildings on one campus. I mean, so they're all managed separately with separate infrastructure. If it was one building, it would be much easier.
feel like maybe you could
I'm not saying
consolidate.
the satellites is a bad idea. I'm just saying, when you put them all down next to each other and they're all 100 years old,
Yeah.
One of the thoughts around satellites is maybe it's a strategy of kind of a multi-use, right? Sometimes,
Satellite can be easily multi.
yeah, I mean, maybe not all functions are directly compatible, but to the greatest extent possible, that might be a strategy to look at too. And I think, a lot of the offices that have a direct client or constituent service element have shared that in the past of the importance of having satellite locations to meet, clients and constituents where they are.
The transportation there is,
Right.
the fences there.
Right.
One of the things, yeah, if I can jump on that, one of the things that we talked about when we were doing the judicial planning is the like Judge Hall said, the one-stop shop. So being able to have a place where a person can go and, get a copy of their property tax bill and at the same time maybe go get their passport done. Having that accessibility for our community is vital. Whether or not we have small satellite offices that offer that is important too, but we need a centralized location where we can say, this is where you go, this is the campus, here's the signage, this is the rooftop, go down this hallway for what you need, versus you're gonna have to get on the bus, go down to Randall Road, come back, bring me that piece of paper, because we still work on paper, and then you're gonna have to go somewhere else afterwards to 3rd Street. I mean, we're putting a lot of pressure on our constituents right now in our community that we don't need to. And I think that this is one of the reasons why I think this is great that we're here today.
Yeah, maybe 2 elements to that, actually. It's this issue of having to bounce between facilities. I mean, I think we've seen it in cases where, maybe somebody goes to court, they have to check in with court services or probation, it's somewhere else, they get lost, they don't check in, and next thing you know, they're rearrested again, and you're going through the whole process. The other thing, I think, to that point is just thinking about facilities in terms of their flexibility. I mean, things are gonna change. There's a trend certainly now toward a little bit different focus on problem solving and trying to have just spaces that provide that kind of flexibility to, kind of take on, maybe it's an outside provider into a space to kind of help, deal with a specific issue at the time. So probably a couple of different aspects to that are really important. Thank you. Yes?
On echo what Roger said about warehouse space, we didn't have space if it wasn't for the state's attorney's office moving some things out in our warehouse. We wouldn't have had, and we still need space, and not just regular warehouse space. We need secure warehouse space because some people still think the 2020 election hasn't ended, and we're still required to keep ballots, and so we need facilities that are secure warehouse space.
Any thoughts around, I mean, I know this issue's come up a couple times in terms of space. Thoughts around location? I mean, does it feel like just centralized as best as possible for efficiency? Do you see a distribution of storage space throughout the county? Any thoughts on that? Central. Cheap and central, I hear. Cheap, secure, and central. Okay, those are good. Is this table 6 over here? Or 4, I don't know, 4, okay. Any thoughts from table 4? Any other, I don't mean to pick on anybody over there, but. Go ahead.
I like the idea of the public-private partnerships too, so in terms of how do we meet the needs of the public, and not just public-private, but Secretary of State was mentioned, so other levels of government, and also whether it's mental health or domestic violence, as Judge Hall mentioned, I think there's opportunity for cost sharing. Either we cost share and help us pay for it, or we're providing service to our community by supporting our community organizations by potentially giving them a more affordable place to do business. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be difficult to get a couple public entities to partner because a lot of different things going on, but I wouldn't shy away from it. I mean, a lot of good things can happen if you can get a couple different groups together and cost sharing and efficiencies of space usage. I mean, there's a lot of great examples out there of that, so something to keep in mind. Yep.
I was also gonna say, I think, you know, we are a secure facility as a 911 center within a very public campus. And that's not secure all the time for our employees. We share the floor with the Office of Emergency Management. So I think looking at what needs to be more secure versus what needs to be more public facing, is important when planning as well.
Okay, great. Yes.
For the design, when I was touring DuPage County's facilities, what I noticed, which we don't have, and I think in any of our buildings, is a central area, it's just a place for people to meet. If they have paperwork, if you are confused about what you need to do, maybe a family member, a friend you're with, just a table to sit down on and to see what was given to you, so you can go back and say, I filled out my form properly. We have old benches, several old benches in the government center for people to sit, but there's not the opportunity to meet.
Yeah, you're speaking specifically of the main government building, the 421 building. Yeah, there's a couple spots in there, just kind of more commons open space. They've got a large cafeteria in the building that gives people opportunities to meet or do things. Yeah, different, very, you know, that's a little bit more of a purpose-built type of building for that kind of function, and that's some of the things that can be planned in. Okay, just trying to be sensitive to time. Why don't we take a little break here? We're going to do another exercise when we get back, but I want to give everybody a chance to get some refreshments. Great feedback so far. Thanks, everyone.
I'm doing good.
So I've been trying to get a hold of Jamie was in Hawaii. She just got back. No, I just wanted to tell you, I've been trying to meet with her, just to talk out tomorrow. And she's just been extremely busy. You know, I think one of her, I don't want her, you know, she knows I can talk to her, I passed her, I told her, so I mean, I think put in the resolutions there, leases there. The issue is she was gone, so she was there, so I've been working with that. So I, you know, I shouldn't do it. I just, you know, Right, so she's there, so I just wanted to get that. She was the one that drafted the language. She was the one that could explain it. She had been there, and I'm not saying she should have been away. She had been there. She had been able to address any questions. I just wanted to get that. No, I just keep, you know, I can only imagine after 2 weeks coming back, and I'm like, can we talk about contracts? But I mean, just how many. So I do think that we're on the yelling there won't be amendments to what's going on. Well, it's just big. Yeah, right. Well, that's what Jim just. I told Jim last time. I was texting him and I said, you know, we're good. We should be good to go. And then for the reasons you know, so he's like, oh, should we good? I want to tell my staff. And I'm like, no, just a little bit wrong. And then he takes it. They think it's worse than it is. And they're really fine. It's your point. After this gets done, have the conversation. What's the county? What's the relationship? No, for sure. I just wanted to give you a heads up. So I'll get there to the meeting tomorrow early, just in case she gets there.
Okay.
Sure. All right. Sounds good. Everything else good? Yeah, I know. That's why I opened it, trying to get some of that grease there. That's way beyond that. Very good answer. I'll give you the solution. Anyway, to me, and then build the Fabian Parkway. We need to stay in Geneva. That's where the county seat is. So build the big house complex in Geneva. That's gotta be 10, 15 million. I think there is too. That's why I think the county seat is.
Smart thinking. So then the 10%, 12% that came out, they're not gonna come back, trust me, you know? They're not gonna come back to you right away. Oh, no, and that came up, and that was all, because we had such a bad election, it's just another reason why that money is just bribery. Because we were really actually winning elections. And I was like, yes, I was the one who says, I need to by 8:30, getting all my returns. But it wasn't, I mean, it was midnight. It was still, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it was 5 hours, you know? I mean, it wasn't like, nobody died. Yeah. Well, yeah, but you know, I was just like, calm down. Next Thursday,
Oh, you mean the movie? The movie that did. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Yes. No.
not the third time we're doing it. But then I said, where does that appear? Of course, it's but it was a nice coincidence that we built the state house, which was cast long before. Of course, you know,
I may be in a lot of pain.
What's the last line of the letter? It's they're going down the elevator and Tom Colehouse, the detective, says, what's that? He's talking about his character station. He says, incorrected the stuff that leaves out. Colehouse says, have you ever seen the trailer with Casablanca against that deleted scene? So, in the trailer, there is a scene near the end where Major Strasser is in the front. And Hogarth's there. And he says, okay, Major, the last flight. Showed that in the theaters. So they decided to reshot the scene. After the movie was already done, they had Hogarth and eyewitness back to reshoot the scene so that he pulls the gun first.
Yeah, but better day.
Yeah. another place. One night there was something
Okay, we're gonna try to get started with our next exercise here. Maybe. How about this? If we stay on track now, we'll get one more break. Otherwise, we're gonna have to go powering through.
I know. Like I have to pick and choose which meetings I can attend because of my work schedule. So then I can start using all my vacation time to come to meetings, basically.
Okay, great. Well, let's get started with the next exercise here.
Terrific. Well, luckily it's a few degrees cooler, so as you all come back and take a seat,
Because of like the
we'll continue our dialogue here. So we wanted to continue the flow of examining the county's needs, but through a different lens in the second session here. And we have a tool that we kind of refer to as the 4-square exercise. Maybe some of you have done this before. And we think about it as a barometer of preferences and concerns. So it's looking at the same kinds of issues, but through a little bit different. This is kind of an emotional connection to things that you're very, very positive about and those that you want to be careful about proceeding with. So I'll explain the 4-square diagram to you. It works on 2 axes, a vertical and a horizontal. And everything above that horizontal line are things, issues, maybe they're physical spaces, there might be procedures, might be simply the way you do things that you like and you want to keep. So that's the want part of the diagram. Everything below that line is just the opposite. It's what you don't want. Now the nuance here is that that vertical line kind of separates it into quadrants. So everything left of the vertical are things that you already have. Perhaps it's the buildings you're in, the services you're giving, the way you're organized. And everything on the right of that vertical line are things that you don't necessarily have. So the nuances here are that in the upper left-hand quadrant are things that you have and you want to keep. You know, whatever you do, don't lose this because it's working. Our community enjoys it. The county is thriving as a result of it. So you have it, you want to keep it. Now just to the right, in the upper right-hand quadrant, that's the list of things that you don't currently have. But boy, you sure would like to have it. All right? So that's the wants that you'd like to move towards. You just don't happen to have it today. It might be you don't happen to have that physical facility or this the technology that would make providing services easier. Could be any of those types of things. You want it, but you don't have it yet. Now, let's drop to the bottom part of the line. In the lower left-hand column or quadrant, we have things that you have today. You have it, but you don't want it. You don't want to keep doing it. You don't want to hang on to it. It's time to let it go. In all those different categories we talked about it. So you have it, but you don't want it anymore. And the bottom right, this is the toughest quadrant because 2 things are happening here. Is that you currently don't have it today, but my goodness, you sure don't want it. So that's why it reads, we don't want it, but we fear getting it. And it's important to hear those concerns because all of you look at these issues through different optics because you do different things You're in different parts of the county, your roles are differently. So you're going to react differently to these quadrants. Now we're going to do something a little old-fashioned. In the last exercise, we did a digital post-it note exercise, and now we're going to revert to the old-fashioned kind. And on your table, there should be a series of these post-it pads and various pens and markers. So we'd like each of you to kind of take a few moments and think about this. And we want you to populate as many ideas as you can come up with. We have 3 easels in the room, one by Jason. So these 2 tables right here to my right, we want you to use Jason's tablet. And where Chris and Danielle are standing, that'll be the 2 tables in the middle. And over here you have an easel where Rich is positioned. So if you have questions, you can ask. Spend some time really thinking about this. These are very, very insightful ideas. They can be as broad or as concise and narrow as you like, as specific or as general. So have at it, and really nothing's out of bounds.
Yeah. Don't feel like you have to put equal amounts in each
questions
bucket.
on that?
If you want to put everything in the upper left and nothing in the lower right, that's fine too.
Yeah, they're all the same. You can use the general order.
I have one very simple thing. We have aqua farms.
I would put it in, we have it, and we, in the upper left, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Bottom right.
Stop. This isn't fair. Everybody's gonna know which ones are mine, right?
Please don't take away windows.
Like we don't have. Oh yeah, I did owe the money. I mean in all aspects,
Yeah, that's. Okay. Okay. Sure. It's not pretty. It's hard to believe how broken it is. It's amazing how that product became so prevalent everywhere before everyone realized it. Right.
Well, the better specific was the specific.
You know, it went over. So I fixed it so it'll never. I had no clue. I mean, I was at both meetings today. So I'm trying to think of the second meeting we left at like 11:30. So I don't know what happened. It didn't happen when we came in at 9. So what? What time it really happened anyway?
You know that?
We're gonna do maybe another 5-10 minutes.
I wanted somebody to carry a cart or something. That type of
We have one that blocks that if something should happen to you in the bathroom, and you collapse, you can't get in there. It's like, yeah, it is. They do the boardroom, we have chairs,
Wait, someone else's pick too. It might not be mine.
That's supposed to be mine.
Eat our lunch off the floor. Good, thank you.
When you say a 3-hour meeting, it's nice to break it up with some refreshments and workshops.
Right, that's what you take contracts. Don't have one.
Maybe just like some access to.
Yeah. Actually, that would be so nice. Like, zero cafeteria.
Didn't someone say they were going to try to bring food trucks to the campus?
You know what would be kind of amazing? This is super blue sky. My kids are adults. If you had like 2,000
Yeah, the hospital I work at has a
I've done this
Montessori
many
school.
times, and that's
So it's a Montessori school.
It's
So they took my
Okay,
dog.
maybe 5 more minutes.
I mean, there's way
That's like
everybody,
the-
everybody needs daycare. And I mean, you bring your kids to work basically.
So great.
And you can see them at lunch, and if they get sick, you go right there. You don't have to take up so much time. I mean, you're paying for it. It's not free, but it's I mean, it's convenient. You're gonna pay for it anyway. Just put that on there.
Right?
Yeah, I can understand that. Who wants that? Who wants that?
It's nice to spend that extra time.
Mine's pink, they know it's me.
Yeah, you know.
Okay, just a few more minutes on this one.
We don't have. That's pretty sad. This is 2023. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that big.
I think you've attacked this with great gusto. Okay, what we're going to do here, I think most of the ideas have been collected. We're going to do just kind of a quick summary. Rich, Danielle, and Megan are going to cherry pick a few of the themes because some of it has been repeated, some are very unique, and kind of summarize what each table grouping has done here. So Rich, let me give you the microphone, and if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I've done this exercise several times, and it's always the upper right corner is probably the easiest one to populate because that's the wish list of what people really want. I think some interesting ones were daycare, covered parking, kind of came up a couple of times, and then also the lower left is always interesting too, and mold and asbestos. Have and don't want kind of makes sense.
We're going to have Danielle take a look at this board.
A couple high-level categories here, what we like and want to keep. A lot of comments having to do with the character and history of place, green space, open space, walking paths, that sort of outdoor environment. And a lot of really great comments about how engaged employees are and they want to be here, and they're excellent staff that works hard to service the public. So quite a few comments on that. Some other interesting ones, what we don't want and fear getting. We range from boring architecture to public disapproval to active shooter. And of course debt, highlighting that kind of fear-based category. Other things that are not wanted and what we have but don't want. Little gray area here, but building A and health department building. So pretty blunt, right to the point there. And as Rich noted, a lot of optimists in the room, definitely filling out the aspirational category of what you want. A couple highlights include windows, energy efficiency, children's youth services, mental health facility, boardrooms, accessibility, all the good stuff that was mentioned earlier today.
Fantastic, all very, very good thoughts. And by the way, these are all going to be collected and recorded, so they won't be tossed away. Well,
can you guys hear me? Okay. So, you know, a lot of the same comments over here in the we want and want to keep. Central location, a lot about open space, loving the historic buildings, and then, you know, everybody has lots of wants, of course. They kind of align with some of the responses we saw earlier: security, adequate meeting spaces, multifunctional opportunities, which is always very beneficial. And then there's several comments about a health department building, a better health department building. And then what we want, what we have but don't want: aged buildings, scattered facilities, limited accessibility options, more IT space. And then what we don't want and fear getting, I think similar to what you saw, Danielle, there's, you know, nobody wants old architectural buildings, so we'll make sure we think about the design and we work with the community as we design spaces. No big financial debt, yes, definitely nobody wants that. And then decentralization. So I think we've got some really good starting points.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone. That was great. A lot of good comments, good thoughts in there. So one last exercise for this evening. Just drilling in maybe a little bit deeper on a couple key topics. We're going to pass out a couple large Post-it notepads here. So for this next exercise, what we'd like you to do is, as a table, work through these 6 topics and list out some things that are of particular importance to you on each of these 6 topics. So you're going to get a little place card at your table with a reminder of the topics. So I'm going to ask each table to pick somebody to be the scribe, so hopefully somebody that's got good handwriting. And then whoever You'll have to pick a table captain. It's going to be the group, the individual that reports back to the group later. So we've put a couple prompter questions up on the screen here for you to think about. Things like sustainability goals, operations could be issues like adjacency of spaces, facility considerations, how it can best support an operation. And we'll leave this up on the screen too while we're working. You know, technology and how it can better support constituent services. Questions maybe about satellite offices and relates to public service, certainly economic issues, concerns, or opportunities you might see there. And then future considerations can be a little bit open-ended, stuff that maybe we haven't talked about yet. So we're going to give everybody about, I think, 25 minutes to try to write down bullet points on each of the 6 topics. So on each of the 6 topics, just put a header of sustainability, for example, list a couple bullet points on things that are of particular importance to you. And then we're going to take a break after we finish wrapping this up, which will give you more time to finish if needed. When we come back from the break, you're going to pick a table leader to present back some of the key thoughts of the table to the rest of the group.
Yes.
And don't feel like you have to answer the questions we put on the screen. Those are just prompters. Feel free to put whatever's on your mind.
Well, one of the things they told us that we couldn't do it was what's it called? Yeah, because we already had the Fargo building built, so we usually
That sounds right.
No, you know, I know.
Joe said we couldn't do it because we had like a loan building. Yeah, we couldn't bond it out. So, but there's other funding mechanisms. That's why, like most things, the ARPA money and grants, federal grants.
Legislative.
Yeah, legislative.
Like under economics?
Well, that's but also like I got that bill passed for the judicial facility. You guys can work on that.
So when I first got on the county board, there was some type of facility management that actually was used to bring federal funds to the. I don't know if they group still exists.
No, it's part it died like a few years ago. So then we only have like but the whole when they put out the master plan and everything, that part just died.
But they say in order to qualify, I also just helped build. I guess I don't know if it was one in the water facility. There's another one somewhere underground. But the bottom line is
What kind of a plan horizon should we look at? How far into the future should the master plan accommodate growth of the county and services? How far in the future? Are we looking 20 years, 15 years?
I think we need to be like we need to understand this is something that we need to be able to do and not like we want to put it together.
Take action now.
It should be a short term and a long term issue. Like 1 to 3 years and then long term, like 5 to 10 year plan.
Now sometimes on your space, if you're talking about an area that has more room to grow, after that, you start with your shower,
they were all there, marking that, and they would never get around it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And do you guys want to ask some other questions here next to Steve? Okay. What are the top priorities the county should consider for future projects related to sustainability, and what are the goals for the county? Yeah. Operations. How did the pandemic change the way you envision operating in the future, and will those changes last? It seems like, for me, we kind of did a little bit of a switch, and I think our future generations are going to ask, they're going to expect that. And so flexible work hours are here to stay. We think they're here to stay. Flexibility. How important is it for government departments to be located near judicial departments?
I think we should have a
It seems like technology is separate here, but it's almost the same thing. Technology.
Just for a quick time check, we should be on about question or topic 3 around this time.
Yeah, we're on 4.
You're at 4, you're way ahead.
We'll take a break. Take a rest in the middle.
Okay, how will technology impact your future operations, and what are limits to technology use?
You shouldn't feel that we should have a limit.
Technology almost like provides less limits, it's like more options, right?
Open to the
Technology is the limit is though what are services that you need to provide to people that you come to production. They still need to provide these services.
Do you?
Yes. Well, certain things we have to do with the law says we do.
Okay, so there's limits because of
Like explaining why people are still coming to our treasurer's office when they do this.
Well, they can't. I mean, if we stopped it, they would have to go.
Well, part of it is when they decide to come.
So what do they do with the data?
I mean, we're really, we're not going to trust them.
I can see it's good enough for me.
No, for you, I'm talking about for somebody, they don't pay the last 2 days. They don't come in.
I'm not saying that there are people that stalk right there.
You still want to see somebody be like, here's all my money, thank you for not giving me any services.
I mean, you can see how technology is going to continue to change. We're going to be able to like biometrically verify who we are on a computer at some point, and we might not.
Yeah, like the generation that only knows how to do it this way.
They only want to do it that way.
Yeah.
They only want to
Like,
Right.
think about
What are you doing? I'm in a chat room hanging with my friends. I'm like, okay. Yeah, so we still need face-to-face services because of legislative requirements, but that might change in the future.
You still can get marriage license and come physically and pay for it.
I know. Seriously. I think I had like the same $20 bill in my wallet when the pandemic started, like 2 years into it. I spent the cash in like 2 years.
Our satellite office is important for providing services. failing to refer. So, how important is it for government services to be located near judicial? We already said that. How important is it for all customer service operations to be located at one point of service within a campus?
You gave a percentage, what percentage do you give?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, but yeah, I mean, the whole point is everything should be on the same baseline, but something that's going to be but I mean, you're going to have Teresa when you take office.
Yeah.
Consider that to take up a big office, right? It's not going to be very close to Jack's office.
But we don't care about Teresa. No, and this is true. Health department's going to be working in her office. But what happened with Jordan? He got to shut off his door.
Yeah.
That was just the source space.
Well, that's why people are so reactive with our planning that we haven't been able to
That's what they don't
Yes, okay. Let's put that right here. Oh my gosh.
Well, I tell you what, I explain it to you. Like right now, you can get a brand new fish still attached to old pipes. And that's what those pipes are designed for. Same thing with HVAC. If you guys do that more modern buildings, you got to get a new HVAC. Your duct work is designed for first. So you still have problems. And the other thing is circulation. How much outside air before helping to
Have you guys taken a tour of the There's a lot of stuff going on. They're in like fire mode every day. And zero preventative maintenance. With the previous administrations. Future considerations. What will be required for security at facilities?
building that has security.
That's why it's important to try to keep it under one roof topic.
Any security is better than no security. Because we have like most of our buildings are
No sidewalks, because there were no school shootings if there were sidewalks.
I'm just putting security. Centralized, controlled entrance. Are there legislative changes that impact the judicial system?
Okay, we're looking at about 10 minutes left.
Anyone talked about it before?
They impact, yes, and they'll continue to impact. In fact, legislative changes are going to continue to impact technology, your cash, everything. I'm just saying they impact and they'll continue to impact everything.
But being proactive helps you in your lobbying strategy.
How about this? I would say two of the things that sound really important to me are like these two things, like implement the plan and be proactive. Like those are like two of the newer, not new, but something that hasn't been repeated enough that you guys right? Are there gaps in existing services? In under public service, are there gaps in existing services? You know, it seems like, honestly, mental health.
information. I think that's a big part of
I agree with Chief Judge Paul in his comments about having a centralized location for some of the services. Like, for instance, if you had other offices that you could fit up with private partnerships in cultural ground, or with Salisbury, with CASA, or with mental health, and people are coming to the government for everything's all over the place. It's almost like that's a gap in service, just understanding the service, like a directory. That's a gap in your service. Library services. And not just the county, because there's so many taxing bodies, like the county, the township, the city, the state, whatever. But imagine, you guys, have you all used ChatGPT? Imagine if you had a program like a ChatGPT where someone could just say, I'm having a hard time with groceries and my budget, and I'm having a music partner, and yes, like a program, and they can say, here's some suggestions, here's some offices, call these people. Right? A kiosk. Right? Interactive. I love that. People don't know Ooh, what's up? Okay, I was a scribe, so I don't actually know that. I might let you down, so I'll just let you guys. How will the public proceed?
If I could get everyone's attention for just 1 minute. So we have an option for you. We were thinking about taking a break after we finish up doing this before we have the report out, or we can just continue right through and get you out of here a little earlier. How about show of hands, who wants to just work through the break and finish early? Okay, I think that's enough. So we'll keep going. We probably have about 5 minutes left to write down comments, and then we'll go around. So everybody be thinking about who you want to have be your spokesperson for the table, and we're going to have each one of you report out. So if there's a table that's still finishing up, we can maybe get started with a table that has finished, but I'll give you a couple more minutes to finish up the writing.
Do you want to have anything else? Do you have any other questions or comments about Your voice is much stronger than mine. Your voice means, your voice carries weight. Your voice, any board members, your voice is carries that weight. Where does it come? Okay, we'll shout it out.
So he didn't know anything really. He had just been trying to shit. You can't talk. Now, he's way past retirement. White House, he's working on
What is he doing?
That's Carolina right now, and we, so it's more
Too humid or something?
He wasn't spoiled marine.
Where in South Carolina? Okay. Oh, yes, my husband.
Yeah, but he's had swamp.
Paris or?
Yeah, Fort Paris.
It's not bad in the winter and the spring and the fall.
That Geneva.
But compared to San Diego.
Where you stay at, it's so dense.
What's alligators?
I'm in the country.
Charleston's like all this work stuff's right here. You got to like all around and stay somewhere.
Is it like artsy? Is it artsy? Yeah. Is that Georgia? Oh, North Carolina. Since we're waiting, I grew up in Canada. They have a lot of comments.
We focus on it.
Yeah, we focus.
It's funny because a lot of times you do this, you turn around,
Now, we'll just highlight the ones that are new. Implement the plan. Short term, long term. We want an interactive social service kiosk. If you want to talk about gaps in service. I think we're done after For what's the next step? So I think we're going to report back at admin and community within the calendar of the beginning session. Then we have 4 months to come up with the different scenarios. And then we'll do the scenarios. We're going to do like evaluations and funding assessment and then look at some different criteria.
Okay, are we getting close to getting through all the topics? A couple more minutes? Okay.
Oh, you mean we can't retrofit that building? It's gonna the whole government center rating is so messed up. It's never gonna be very friendly for people.
No, Kevin is heard about it. Yeah, because that was too long.
You gotta go up like 15 steps to get there.
come back. And so somebody let me up, I got lost on the way back. I wound up, and then I'm walking down the hall and think somebody's
I literally could stand outside in the parking lot all day long. And every time I walk to another office, I have to walk somebody to building C or building D or I have to point to every single time I walk outside.
We park the overflow. We got one board.
Yeah, how, that's
That's the last 20 minutes. When you're born. That's good.
Take everybody's markers away.
Yeah, just
We have the answers. I mean, there's really not much.
they don't even need to talk. We just do ours and we're done. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So I can watch all the crowd.
I'll hold it up for you.
Until you,
No, it depends on who gets it. Why do you like
Said that the 2020 election was not fixed.
No, we have.
so much history. I just sit in this office talking to guys. Last time I'm listening to grandkids. I get grandkids. I got a phone call today. My daughter's in party city, pick up the take it home. Then we gotta get them on FaceTime. Then we can buy
Wow.
And then the other parents, the other side of the family, it was like no, they want to do it. So I'm sitting in the church, I'm like, sitting to my wife. So, and then below you could see they went to the Lord. Even when she told us that she was pregnant, it was like Christmas time. And she said, oh, we got to contact her. I told him, so we did that. She came out but the baby is August 2024. So everybody kind of freaked out. And my little grandbaby, she finds out her aunt is going to bring the baby. She starts and so she
Okay, is everybody finished? I think so, yes, okay. So what we're gonna do now is have a spokesperson from each table come up to the front and just share some of the thoughts that your table came up with. So I'm gonna take volunteers to be the first table to present. All right, Ron Ford presenting.
I don't have my glasses, so.
You wanna use the mic or you're just gonna move it out there?
That should be good. So, I got it. You guys got me remember stuff.
All right.
We're going to try to make this short. So the first part is, it's going to be follow the plan. Follow the plan. And also, we want to be able to interact with social service. Kiosks. And then we said that one of the main things, we also talk about mental health. Mental health. Are you that old?
All right, so you want me to start over again? Let me go on this side.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
There was a plan.
So follow the plan. That's the one thing is this process has been done probably not to this extent time and time again. So one thing we want to do is stick to the plan, and then we want to look at making a short 1 to 5 year plan and maybe a 5 to 10 year plan, because there's a lot of things that was planned before that never got around to being done. We feel like there's a lot of different ways out there that we need to do the research for to find a way to pay for whatever it is that we want to accomplish. We don't want to get so bogged down on where funds going to come from, but really put the effort towards trying to find out what our options are. So short-term plan, implement the plan, of course. We talked about mental health facility, a kiosk, so people can understand what it is that we have for service, so they'll know. There's a lot of things that we offer, but people have no idea what they are. You guys help me out if I forget anything.
It was the idea of a kiosk with interactive social services, so a person can go to the kiosk and say, I need help with food, and all the services would be available to them. So that was the idea with the gaps in services for public service.
Yeah, exactly, yes. And we just want to be proactive. That's the main thing, be proactive. It's good to come up with a plan, but we need to be active, stay on it, and keep it going. Anything else you guys remember?
Do you want to touch on technology in the future?
Technology, whatever Roger says that we need. That's pretty much it. But technology is important. This new generation, how they don't just demand technology, that's their way of life. And they're our future. For them, why not? As us, why do we want to still do that? For them, is why not do it this way? So we have to really take a look at technology and how it's going to apply to everything that we do. And that's probably most of the main part of it, to keep it short. Oh, and if we got to work with legislative, that's something that we need to do. So, anything else? Yeah.
Legislative are some of the big limits on technology.
Yeah, right.
But that can change.
Exactly. So, we're not looking for questions, are we?
No, I mean, I think comments along the way is fine, but it's great, good report out.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, who wants to go next? Perfect, table 6.
That's why you didn't want to come up here, right? Way to go. You can hide behind the county's website. That's on the county website.
Yeah, thanks, yeah. You're welcome. Okay. All right. Is this on? You can hear me good. Okay. So we did sustainability. We thought we should look at net zero buildings, LEED certification, basically follow the green building policy that we already have. And we wanted to make sure that we balance the long-term need with flexibility. So when we're building something, is it actually going to continue to be able to be adapted for future needs? Then we went to our public service. We believe that satellite locations should be available, they should be efficient, and that we should be concerned about the public, who are the consumers. We believe that there was a government service versus the judicial service consolidation, that the one-stop shopping kind of deal, and that the space we should have flex space where there could be open spaces for different people to use for different things at different times. Technology, we believe, I was at the justice table, so access to justice, meeting the public where they are, and recognizing that we might have to have agreements with municipalities to meet the needs of people who maybe can't access these in their homes. We also were concerned about accessibility struggles, language,
cost? Are these services available to people, not just in terms of like the location, physical accessibility? Oh my goodness. Future considerations, we wanted to make sure that we had secure entries and exits, that we could do risk assessments in all buildings, that there was a building security procedure for all. I just give you an example of that when you go to the courthouse, if you're an employee, you just get waved through, and we're not sure that that's such a good idea. And then that we have the Safety Act concerns and the detention standards. What was that? That was
the potential legislation where they're going to make juveniles 18 or 19.
18, okay. So we have to make bigger spaces for them because they'll be in a different category. For operations, we thought everything that was public facing should be first floor access. We like the idea of hybrid workspaces, which helps to alleviate the space concerns, gives us job satisfaction, increases engagement. We wanted to keep related services together. We thought the circuit clerk and the judiciary was a good mix. We thought social services and court services were good. Treasurer, the assessor, the clerk, and the recorder. We thought we should do it, but just as it made sense, not just randomly. Is that my last one? No, we have one more. Okay, for economics, we felt we needed to optimize the input from public engagement and get them on board. We wanted to plan for at least 25 years, and we used the judicial building as the marker for that because it was built and then 25 years later it needs more space. Funding sources, we thought we could do bonds, we could do grants, we could look at public-private partnerships, or go to referendum if we had to. And I think that's everybody on our list. Okay.
Any other thoughts from the table? You guys got it? Good, okay. Who wants to go next? Okay, table 5. It's a rush to see who gets to go first here. This is great.
Do you need this?
Do I have to follow?
Do I have to hold it too? No? Okay.
Hi, so we started out with technology and the changes from technology. We really think that technology is going to change because of the work from home aspects, especially because of the pandemic. We think we will need less office space because of that, and also because of hybrid work. We feel like we're going to have fewer customers in person, so when we're worried about that interface with the public, that's going to be greatly reduced as people use more, I pay my taxes online, probably you do too. We wanted to have computer access for the public at some of our facilities so that people have access that don't have computers at home. We want a kiosk too, especially for signage for wayfinding people so that they can know about events or where to find things. We need digital marquees, which is kind of like the kiosk maybe, but maybe different. A digital marquee for events, etc. And also I like what Myrna you said about, or who said, add those, the public services, mental health to that. We want adaptive windows so that when the sun is shining too bright, you push a little button and the curtains close. And we want more security cameras, so technology. Public service, we think that satellite offices are very important, especially for disadvantaged communities or for our ADA community. We think that every satellite should have every public service so that they're spread out throughout the county and everybody can have access much more easily. The judicial near government, we do not think that is important. It's not necessary. As we say again later, judicial and government are not the same populations. If you're getting your marriage license, you don't need to be by the jail, hopefully. We do like the idea of one point of service, but actually several one-stop shops throughout the county to make it more accessible. So we see some big gaps in services. Am I about to feedback here? Mental health services, children's services, and public health. And so we think that is all of those are huge gaps in the public service that we're providing right now. For economics, we are worried about the public perception of the improvements that we want to make for the county. We believe that some people will think it's way too costly. Some people may think it's cost efficient. We've got costly versus cost efficient, question mark. We couldn't figure that one out. Some people will just plain say it's not needed. So may have a public perception issue. Growth, we think we should plan for 20 years. I think most of our plans are like that, right? In 2020, you plan for the 2040 plan, but maybe 25 would be better. Funding, bonds, selling property, selling our children. Oh no, that wasn't on the list. Sales tax, which would sunset, and ARPA funds. That's right. Okay. Future considerations. Security. We think we may need metal detectors, or at least more secure entrances, better outside lighting, and light sensors on the outside lighting. Right here we put move the Veterans Memorial, because that is a future consideration. If we move, we'll have to move the Veterans Memorial. And maybe what to do about the Yellow House if we move, because that has a historical plaque on it. So don't mess with the Yellow House. Let's see, and then more outside art in the future. For sustainability, we wanted lead architecture considerations, renewable energy, green building code, which we already have. Oh, that's nasty. We want flexibility. That's funny. Somebody else said flexibility for sustainability. Lighting on sensors, green materials in all of our building efforts, green roofs, gray water reuse, which Jody, I think, said we can't do. But we can still think about it. How about gutters? What about rain from the gutters? That could be, there's ways. Native plants and gardens. And then on our other category, I think I've got another sheet here, but other category was Yellow House, outdoor public meeting spaces, and indoor public meeting spaces. Was that all of them? What? Public art. Public art is, yeah, outside art, public art, that's under future. Operations for the pandemic. We think hybrid work is still gonna stay with us forever. It's more sustainable, it keeps people off the roads. Zoom will be important. Will these effects from the pandemic last? And we said yes, we're never going back. Government close to judicial, we don't think that's an important thing. Again, because it's a different population, and judicial should be close to judicial, and government should be close to government, but the government and judicial don't have to be close to each other. That's it.
Thanks. I'm going to let table 2 go now, because they're anxious.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, some of it not too neat.
It's the quality handwriting.
Okay, testing. All right. So for our table for sustainability, we talked about addressing changing needs and having a flexible construction.
Closer to mine.
Closer? Oh, okay. So addressing changing needs, we're going to have flexible construction for the present and then future. Just be flexible. For operations, we talked about the importance of security, consolidating the entrances so that there's one public entrance rather than a number of various different entryways. More remote access and continue that where appropriate. Future considerations, remote sites. Have a remote site for if there's a disaster, so have that. What else do we have? Public service, satellite offices, yes. And we were talking about combining possibly some of these, the circuit clerk, county clerk, health department, development, some of them. You know, even I'm imagining the clerk and the recorder, that sort of thing. But also be flexible. As far as economics, the public perception, we felt it was going to be mixed, and it was important to have outreach and education for that. As far as funding, we talked about some sort of bond issue or a sales tax, and there was a suggestion of an RTA sales tax. I like the idea, though, of a sunset on that. That's a good idea. Technology, we're probably going to have more online services at some point. The buildings, they have to adapt to the new technology, so when you build them, the building can handle the new technology. We felt there's going to be a decrease possibly in physical storage with some records and stuff because it's now going to the new technology or putting in digital storage. So we're going to increase virtual storage.
Okay, table 1 or table 4, who wants to go next? Okay, Roger's on it.
No pressure.
Okay. All right, so our table, some of these I'll expound upon, but for the most part, for sustainability, obviously energy efficiency for the buildings, we were talking about the mechanical systems and all the old aging things that we need to replace, but you can also do that with energy efficiency in mind. And I think we're doing good things with that, but as we work through this plan, I think that's important. Adaptable and flexible. We had a couple people that wanted to make sure that even if we're building something that we don't know the future, CMAP and some of the data is maybe not as perfect as people would like. So, making sure that we have some adaptability and flexibility in whatever it is that we build, because things do change. I was explaining when I started at the county in 2001, the population was about 400,000. About 2009, it was almost 500,000, and then it kind of plateaued. Well, I'm just saying, you had about, in 10 years, you had about 25% growth, and then you had a plateau. Yeah. And so now, what are you going to experience in the next? And everybody thought the trajectory was just going to go, keep going. So I think that's important, the adaptability and flexibility, and also trends and the way people do things changes. So future-proof, and then more. They want more solar and looking at our rooftops and the spaces that we have available to do more projects like that. All right, so public service. We were talking about accessibility and ADA. We did talk about a centralized site versus satellite sites in Elgin and Aurora, where the population centers are a little bit bigger. Having combined, not necessarily combining everything in one site, but having combined services so people can get to one location and get service. That could be in multiple sites, but making sure that if they get there, they don't get sent away to another site to get those services. So satellite sites. And we also talked about online and in person. I don't think you'll get away from people coming in, but you can try to encourage it and make it as easy as possible. And then the last one, we were talking about parking. Everybody seems to think that we need to have better parking, closer parking, accessible parking. Those things were mentioned as well for public transportation too. It's a good topic. Operations, we talked about remote and hybrid work environments. And you also talked about like the quality of life and childcare and vacation and other things those are not necessarily buildings, but as you look at some of the things that came out, one of the statements was about how, I think we were talking about how the COVID affected things and what people are asking about when they come to work with us. And some of those topics come up is how do I take care of my kids when the world's falling apart and I don't have enough resources and the county doesn't provide services for their employees to take care of any of those things. Staffing needs always comes up. We don't have enough room or enough people to do all the work that is coming our way. And I think that, that occurs quite a bit. A building doesn't necessarily fix that, but if you need to add more people and you need to do more work, you can send them home and have them work remotely. But I think the problem is that you have to ramp up and train all these people somewhere. And we don't have training facilities for our staff. We don't have places to do a lot of the things to create those environments, to onboard people, train them. We sometimes don't have the people to spend time with them to train them. So that's a different type of operational issue, but it's related to space as well. So let's see if I can get to the next page. All right, so economics, they talked about financing and funding and how that would work if it's something that you have to either look at, the bonding, or if you're dealing with the levy or sales tax or other funding measures, whether they're a public question or is there things that can be done within the county. And I think those are big questions for the county over the next year as you get this plan more finalized and you have the options, you know what you're dealing with or what is recommended. I liked Ron's suggestion about short-term versus long-term, maybe some phased types of approaches. There's some things that need to be done short-term, and then there's like long-term. What are you going to be in 50 years when you grow up? Jody has mentioned numerous times, what do we want to leave for like our kids and grandkids? And I think that's important. We don't necessarily think about that, but it's good to stop and think, how will this place work in 50 years? So we talked about inflation and the cost of construction a little bit, and how inflation and the interest rates and things are affecting. And what do you think will happen in the next year to 5 years? Right now, the cost of borrowing is a lot steeper than it was 5 years ago, even a year ago. So that's another topic in the economics, is what is the bonds for municipal bonds or the things that we'd have to do for general obligation bonds. And then the last piece we talked about was public perception, and how does it look compared to other referendums and other things that have gone out. If you're asking the public the question, how do you start building that perception that this is a good investment for the future, and do you have the support of the public? And then the last one was technology, and I think this is common with everybody, remote work. And one of the things I put up there is trying to get more of an automation team to automate processes, trying to focus in on that. But when you're dealing with buildings, again, automating processes, building those, like I call them hoteling or study carrel types of workspaces. Where do you do that? Where would you start? Where would you try to pilot those things? It doesn't necessarily have to be a new office space, but it could be a renovated space. But how do you get space to do those types of things? Again, we're kind of at our capacity in most places. So flexible workspaces and also shared workspaces was a topic. So if you're building an office and you have these study carrel, hoteling, shared workspaces, and you have people that do the remote work or they do hybrid work, do they need an office? Do they need 4 walls? Then you have the opposite, which is true too of the shared workspaces. You have people that need privacy. We have a lot of attorneys that are now doing video for court, and they can't do 4 people doing video in one room. It just doesn't work. They need privacy to do the video. So then you send them home. Do you know who's in the room with them, or where are they sitting at? Are they in the cafe doing criminal case? I don't know. It's a concern. Like, how do you handle things when people are remote? And that's policy too. We had to come up with. Future security issues. Everybody kind of feels that pressure of what's safe and how do you take care of the people in these buildings. You can improve security, and I think the question you asked earlier was about openness to the public versus security. It's kind of a contrast of a question. I think that balance needs to be understood before you build a building, and you don't create a big enough entryway to accommodate, ways to check people in. Or I don't think somebody mentioned it. The Judicial Center is a perfect example. If you walked into the Judicial Center, a lot of our buildings, it's a single point of entry for the employees and the public. And you cross paths with them, and some of the people you cross paths with, you probably shouldn't cross paths with, because state's attorneys, coming in and out of the front door, there's people that are going to court that day as well. So there's things like that where entrances and how you access the buildings and controlling the buildings is really important. Even parking, where you park and where you come in. Last thing is the legislative changes and the Safety Act. That was a topic that we discussed. What would happen with that in the short term versus, long term? That's a moving target. They're going to probably change, relatively frequently in the future. It'll continue to evolve. I don't know how predictable it is, but that's something that you have to be conscientious about and kind of follow, see what we can do. So those are the things that table 1 had. I think that's the last one, right? Okay. Yeah, I think we're done. Any questions? No, no questions. We're good. Everybody's tired. Thank you. Thank you.
Last but not least, table 4.
Table 4.
Nobody wants to volunteer.
Lisa.
Bring a buddy.
Turn this away from you a little bit. I just don't want the feedback.
Sure, I'll go first. All right, well, we get to go after Roger, and we agree to everything that Roger said. No, so for operations, we agree. The pandemic has changed everything. Everybody's using phones, everybody's using more mobile devices. All the plans that we have around operations have to look at who's coming in who will still continue to come into the buildings, as well as who's going to be doing things virtually in the future. And then the location, there is a benefit to being close together, and we agree to that in 2 different places. There is a benefit to having one main hub, even if there's, satellite in the north, center, and south.
And, so I will add the caveat to that in my opinion, the population that goes to court and that goes to the government center are the same population. As we know, statistically speaking, 50% of all marriages end in divorce. So those people are going to go to court. They also are going to go pay their taxes. They're going to pay their property taxes. They need to go to the clerk's office to get birth records so that they can take those back to court to talk about the status of their personal being. They have death records that they need to get from the coroner so that they could go to civil court to take care of their tort cases and their, all their inheritances and all of those things. It's absolutely the same population, in our opinion. I think that was about that. So for the technology piece, we said that we agree with everything that everyone's saying. We need a lot of mobile spaces, a lot of kind of open concept spaces, workspaces that aren't limited, so that we can meet the public where they're at. If it's in a hallway, like we need a robust Wi-Fi system so that we can have laptops and we can meet with people wherever they're at. And then the other issue is that we want to continue with our remote options like Zoom and whatnot.
Sure. Public service. So public facing is important, right? So we think having a face and having the ability to still meet is very important. As well as, yes, there are gaps in service, such as mental health and social services, and how can we best address those? All right, economics. We discussed what would it look like as we're prepping the public for some future change, and we think it is going to be a hard sell, but it is in how you do sell it, and the benefits. For instance, Building C, where Kane is located. I daily watch people not know that there is an entrance in the back, and they are scaling those stairs, and I can see it in the camera, and it's not always a safe situation, so I'll go outside and remind them that there is an entrance in the back of the building. There's not great signage there, so what are some benefits? Some benefits are, hey, there's 3 different locations that you can go to, or there's better access, or you can get stuff addressed in one building as opposed to navigating around different places within the campus. Go to the future?
Yeah, so for the future, we really like the idea of having, like Roger and a lot of people have said, those hubs where we can share space. We can, like, if we were all the departments in a location, we could share a receptionist, we could share office furniture, we could share copiers. It would be an economy of scale benefit for all of us to be able to have those shared spaces. Our legislative impact is going to be felt absolutely every single session. There's more and more that comes out where people are tweaking what we need to do on the government side and the court side. The other thing that we talked about a little bit, and we have a little bit of an advantage in our table, is that Mike Isaacson is there, I'm there, and there have been a lot of studies that show that public health actually benefits or impacts the criminal system quite a bit. As we know, programs like visiting nurses and Head Start, when we have robust visiting nurse programs, crime will actually go down when those babies grow up to become young teenagers. And that's been shown over and over again. So there's a lot of synergy there, and we really want to make sure that we're able to keep those ties and build on those evidence-based practices that have been shown to work. For the sustainability, we talked a lot about energy efficiency, but we also talked about being really good stewards of the resources that we have and that we're already given, to making sure that there's no waste and that we're being as sustainable as possible. Right down to things, for example, in a closed building like the Judicial Center, when the air is on and it's cranking, you've got employees also running heaters because they're too cold. So we need to be able to find that balance so that we're not expending too much energy. We need to be able to have recycling that's clear that we're recycling and that recycling is actually happening so that the employees buy into that and continue to participate in that. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Perfect.
Great, thanks everyone. So Mark raced here from the airport, so I want to give Mark just a minute to share. I know I'm catching him kind of cold, but just to share any thoughts that you have.
It's good to see you all here. It does my heart good to see a room full of people who are all believers in what we're talking about. I'm sorry I missed what I'm sure were a lot of great ideas, and Jason undoubtedly took notes of all of it. It doesn't go by in a blink of an eye, but I was elected in 2004. So I've done this for a little while, and the hot topic at that time was building a jail at the Judicial Center campus. And I naively thought at the time that the next step would be what we're talking about now, 20 years later. When we do this, it will require courage. It will require all of you not just believing in it enough to be here today and share your ideas, but to keep talking about it to everybody you come across. Because it will take courage to actually make this happen. But when we do it, it will serve the community of Kane County for the next 100 years. So it really is important. And the 20 that went by since I started and thought it was going to happen right away did go by pretty fast. So I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad you're believers. Don't stop.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so we're almost done. I just want to give a quick rundown on some next steps and kind of what to expect going forward here. So I think this is, many of you that were at the committee of the whole meeting saw this. I mean, we're on a 6-month run on this. We're about a month into it at this point. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, getting ready for this workshop. Our next step really is to dig into some scenarios. We're going to take all this information in and start looking at different options on how to solve some of these challenges and take in a lot of the opportunities that everybody put forth here tonight. And we'll have a lot of working group sessions on that. So we're going to be working closely with a lot of the department heads and elected office holders in that, and also with obviously all the board members as well. Why don't you go to the next slide? So I just highlighting a couple points. One of the big things we want to do is take all the information we gathered here tonight, try to synthesize that, summarize it in a way that we can do a report back at maybe your next committee of the whole meeting, just to give you a good report out and dig through all the commonalities of the thought process, identify things that rose to the top that can be really considered sort of guiding principles in terms of driving the process forward. And then we've got regular interactions. We're going to be at the admin committee meeting every month. We've highlighted 2 key steps in there, June 14th and then August 9th, where we want to hit kind of a midpoint and present work in progress on the scenario plans for how the needs could be met through new facilities, new development, renovation, all the various aspects, and then kind of a finalization of options to be presented at the August 9th meeting. We're looking for robust feedback at that meeting probably. We're suspecting that we're going to want to have a more inclusive group, maybe the committee of the whole following, to really brainstorm some of these options and try to narrow it down to preferred solutions. Then from there, we would take a little bit of time to really kind of tie it all together, add some schedule information and budget information, and look to present in September to admin, and then work through the process with committee of the whole again, and ultimately look for a final master plan that can be adopted by the board in October. So a lot of things go in there. There's going to be a lot of other meetings that aren't on this slide here that'll happen, one-on-one sessions with key stakeholders to kind of really vet certain ideas. So a lot of work's going to happen. We'll keep everybody informed along the way. So we're going to be touching base with you again. I think there was a lot of great discussion tonight about economics, funding. I've said a couple times at our working meetings and at committee meetings that it doesn't do any good to come up with a plan that doesn't have a financial plan that works alongside it. We are not in the business of trying to create documents that sit on the shelf and collect dust, because that doesn't do anybody any good. So it was a great start tonight talking about how you can marry up financial plans to make this happen. I think Roger brought up a good point. Costs aren't going down. They always go up, so we have to think about that and try to find good timing on how to get the work done, be creative with that. So I'd say keep that top of mind. Don't miss an opportunity on how to take advantage. We had some good discussions recently with DuPage County, where they shared some of their insights on strategies they use to implement. So, and every county's different, but I think it was good information. So that's it. I think I just want to say thanks to everyone. Give yourselves a round of applause for all the good hard work tonight. It was great.
Very good. So again, thank you, everybody. I thought it was an amazing opportunity to hear so many great ideas and collaborative ideas with this workshop. So yes, sir.
It's my time.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet. Give me just a second.
They want it.
They're anxious for you. He's our closer. So we do not need executive session. Mr. Kenyon.
I move we adjourn.
We are now adjourned. Thank you very much. We do this.